Hey everybody, my name is Adrian. I've been learning Vietnamese for 1 year and I wanted to make this video to kind of help you avoid some things that I did wrong and kind of put you right on the track of where I started doing things right. Because to be honest, after 1 year, I'm not very happy with where I am. And at the end of the video, we'll get into where I am after a year and maybe where you could expect to be. Hopefully you're further than I am after a year. But yeah, just to kind of alert you to some of the potential mistakes that you could make that would set you back, because I learned that from experience and I wish somebody had told me these things very early on. So I'm just gonna get right into it. The first thing you need to do when you start learning Vietnamese, before you even start learning Vietnamese, is figure out which dialect you want to learn. I don't know why I said that so weird. Which dialect you want to learn. And you need to do this because depending on which learning resource you use, they're going to be geared towards different dialects, even if they don't say it explicitly. So for example, when I started learning, I was learning only through Duolingo because that's how I had learned a lot of Spanish and it was very helpful. So I thought, okay, I'll try it for Vietnamese too. It'll be great. And it's, it's fun, it's easy, and it's fun to use. Why not? Well, the problem is once I started learning it and I started talking to my wife's parents, like trying to use some of the words that I had picked up, they had no idea what I was saying. And even though it was Vietnamese, they were like, what? Like, why do you say it like that? We don't really say that. We don't really understand what you're trying to say. And it's because my wife's family are from the South and Duolingo is geared towards the Northern accent. So however you feel about that, a lot of people say that the Northern accent is just how it's correctly spoken and the South has kind of butchered the language. I don't care. I want to just speak it the way that people around me understand it. So, I don't really care to get into that whole debate, but yeah, figure out which dialect you want to learn. If you live in America, especially California, you're going to want to learn the Southern dialect because pretty much every Vietnamese person in California, at least like 99% of them that I've met, are from the South and speak the Southern dialect. I've only met like one person who speaks the Central dialect, and I don't think I've directly met anybody who speaks the Northern, but I know of some people who do. But it's really, really rare. Like, you probably will never meet somebody who speaks the Northern dialect in Southern California. So, but if you're not sure, ask the people who you're trying to speak to. Like, hey, if I want to learn Vietnamese and I want to talk to you better, what's the right dialect to learn? There's three, as you probably know already, if you're watching Vietnamese language videos on YouTube. There's the Northern, Central, and Southern. Some differences I can briefly talk about here are like the pronunciation of certain words. For example, words that start with G in the South will be pronounced like a Y. So like the word GI with a down tone in the South is pronounced Yi. So if you're asking somebody, what is your name? You'd say like Banten La Yi. In the North, that's going to be pronounced like Z. So you say Banten La Z. And I'm not sure about the Central, actually. I don't know if it's how they pronounce that. So I won't go there. But those are some differences with the North and South. There's also some words that the North uses that the South does not use. For example, like the North would call a car xe ô tô, and the South would call it xe hơi. And I think even like trains in the North, they call it like xe tàu. And in the South, it's called xe lua. So different words where if you're talking to somebody from the South and you're using Northern vocabulary and pronunciation, they might have no idea what you're saying, even though you're speaking the same language technically. So yeah, really nail that down. Really make sure which dialect you want to learn. And then once you figure that out, the second thing to do is to get a tutor. It's not optional. It's not negotiable. You will not learn nearly as good as you would with a tutor. If you don't have a tutor, it's going to take you like 3 times as long to figure these things out, because you need to be speaking the language, and a tutor really helps you do that, because they'll tell you, hey, here's a new grammar structure that we're going to learn today. Here's some new vocabulary words. Okay, now practice talking to me using those structures and vocabulary. And that's crucial. There's no way that you can get by without a tutor. I tried to get by without a tutor, so that's why I'm telling you this. Because for the first 4 months or so, I was learning without a tutor, mainly using Duolingo. And then once I figured out that Duolingo was Northern, I found some like books online to help me out that were geared towards Southern Vietnamese. And that helped a lot more, but I still wasn't anywhere near conversational until I got a tutor. So you have to get a tutor. I basically wasted like 5 or 6 months just not having a tutor. And then once I got a tutor, make sure your tutor is from Southern Vietnam, because I had a tutor who, he was great, and his lessons were very helpful, and the way he taught was like really good, and I felt like I was progressing a lot. But there were just some words still, even though he was trying to teach me Southern Vietnamese and he said he knew both, there were just some words that he was accustomed to using in his daily life that were Northern. Like he kept telling me that "se auto" was the right way to say car, and never even brought up "se hoi." Same thing with like "se tao," and he never even brought up "se lua" for trains. So stuff like that, they're in their daily life, they're speaking Northern Vietnamese. So he like just didn't know of some of these words that Southerners had that used differently. So make sure your tutor is from the South. So once you have that, you also need to self-study with textbooks, flashcards, etc. And real quick before I get into that, some excuses that people bring up with having a tutor. One, it sounds expensive, right? It sounds expensive, a tutor. You're like, what am I gonna pay, like tons of money per hour? It's not expensive. It's really not. My first tutor, who was from the North, he was like $14 an hour, which is really cheap. And then now I use a different service. I found him through Preply. Now I use a different service called SVFF, Southern Vietnamese for Foreigners, and their website is svff.online. They're not sponsoring this video, but that's what I've been using for like the past 7-8 months or something like that. And it's been immensely helpful, and I don't think I'd be anywhere near where I am without them. So I highly recommend them, especially if you're learning for the Southern dialect. If you're learning for the Northern dialect, they also have Northern and Central, but I haven't tried it out, so I don't know how good it is. But they provide you a tutor, they provide you textbooks, they provide you quizzes to practice. They even have like speaking practice, like homework, I guess, where you go on this video platform and they tell you to talk about something in Vietnamese, and then it asks you, like, lists out questions. Like one I did recently was about hobbies. So it was like, what are some hobbies that you like to do recently? You know, what do you like about it? Is it good for you? Is it bad for you? Do you regret picking up this hobby? Or, you know, things like that. And you just have to answer it all in Vietnamese. And then they'll have teachers watch your video and give you like a review. They'll make a video themselves watching your video and giving you a review of how you did, some things you can maybe say better and things like that. So that's really helpful. They're great. So those are a couple of like resources. Preply, if you want to just find a tutor one-on-one, and SVFF if you want like a more structured, to me at least, it seems more structured and has a lot more resources to offer. And it's very cheap. I think it's like, if you buy 15 hours, it's $150. So, or sorry, 10 hours, it's $150. And the more hours you buy at once, the cheaper it is per hour. So it's like $15 per hour. It's not bad at all. So that's great. So yeah, find a tutor through whatever resource and meet with them at least once a week. I'm trying to up it now to be like 2 hours a week, but it's definitely crucial. So then we can get to number 3, self-study with textbooks and flashcards. This is crucial because if you're just meeting with your tutor and, you know, they're teaching you something and you talk and you practice using their new grammar structure or whatever, and then you don't do it for like another week, and then you meet with them again and you practice a new grammar structure, like none of this is really sticking in your head if you're just doing it once and then moving on to something else next week. So you need to practice on your own, which is easy. I have some flashcards I just bought at like Walmart. They were like $1.50 for a pack of 50 flashcards, and I just write down a word, an example sentence, and then on the back has the English meaning. So it's really helpful. Anytime I just like have a minute, it could just be like "good," so, and then just read out the example sentence, because a lot of this is practicing to speak as well, so you get more comfortable. So like the practice sentence I have here is em coi dùng ăn, coi có con bạn nào gần cửa sổ không? And then I have to guess what does that word mean, and then did I get it right, and then just go through the whole thing, the whole stack. It's fast. It doesn't take very long. I think it maybe take you like 5 minutes, even though there's 50 or more index cards to go through, but it helps those words stick in your brain. And I find that if I don't do that, then I don't really pick up vocabulary as easily. So definitely do that. Obviously, if you go with SVFF, who is not sponsoring this video, I promise, they have textbooks as well that they provide, so that's really helpful to learn on your own. They have like exercises you can do in them, fill in the blank. They'll even have like a block of like write a paragraph using these grammar structures or whatever. Really, really helpful. And then the speaking practice, like I mentioned. The fourth thing I would recommend is to watch YouTube videos in Vietnamese. I think the more Vietnamese you hear, the better. Because there's a lot of little filler words and things that people say differently just because, we're humans. That's the same thing in English. But some of these filler words will throw people off, especially me. And so if you get more practice kind of hearing those words and you hear that and you're like, wait, what does that mean? Because sometimes I'll hear stuff and I'll be like, okay, I know what the words around that means, but they threw in this word that I don't know what it means, and I don't know if it changes the meaning. So I'll just look it up, and then you kind of figure out like, okay, here are some words I can kind of ignore, and I just need to focus on the words around it, because that's just a filler word basically. I'm trying to think of an example, but I can't really. Yeah. I can't think of any, but if I come up with some, I'll put them out there. But yeah, maybe that's like a good idea for another video. Vietnamese filler words to not worry about. So that's number 4. If you want some recommendations for YouTube videos, I really like watching Chris Mix Lewis. He's a polyglot, speaks a bunch of languages, but he has some really good Vietnam videos where he just goes around and eats food and talks to people, and they're all surprised that he speaks Vietnamese. And it's really cool because you see kind of casual conversations, and I think that's really helpful. There's also Max McFarlane, who makes a lot of videos with him. His videos he speaks a lot more English in his videos, I've noticed, but when he talks to people in Vietnam, he obviously speaks Vietnamese, so you still kind of hear that conversational stuff, and he like goes around, eats a bunch of food, and that's really fun to see. There's Phuc Map. You got to be careful with Phuc Map because he sometimes says stuff like without the tones, which can be confusing. And sometimes I pick up bad habits from watching his videos, but not to trash on him at all. I love his videos, and he's really entertaining, and he's a great guy. But I've just noticed that sometimes, I think like when he gets excited or something, he'll say something like with a different tone. One example that comes to mind is like when he says thank you, or like thank you very much, he'll say "Cảm ơn nhiều," but it should be "Cảm ơn nhiều," because "nhiều" should be with a down tone. But it's in casual conversation, like nobody cares, no one's gonna get mad at you or misunderstand you. But it's just something that I don't want to pick up. In fact, I said that to my wife's parents, and she was like, "No, it's new." So it's just little things like that. But it's not a big deal. And his videos are hilarious, and he's really fun to watch. So I highly recommend him as well. And then I also watch a lot of like Vietnamese news. There's a channel called Little Saigon TV. They're based in Westminster, California, and they just talk about like news around the country, and it's all in Vietnamese, so it's kind of nice. It's more formal, obviously, so you're not going to get the casual conversation feel, but it's still very helpful for me. Yeah, so those are my big recommendations, things that I should have done a lot sooner, and I'd probably be a lot further now, which brings me to how far am I after a year of stumbling along and doing a lot of things wrong? How far have I gotten? Well, I, according to my tutor and the textbook that we're working from and all that, I'm kind of in the lower intermediate category. So I'm, able to hold simple conversations. I can order food at a restaurant. I can, ask for directions. I can have very basic conversations with people. Once it starts getting like a little beyond that, or like maybe specific areas of conversation where I don't know the vocab very well, then things kind of fall apart. But I'm pretty comfortable with daily conversations. Like I can introduce myself. That's like the first thing you learn. I can ask somebody how they're doing. If they're sick, I can kind of ask them like, "How are you feeling? What are your symptoms?" Or I can explain my sickness if I'm sick. I can describe food. I can order food, like I said. I can ask for the check. Like the stuff you would need day to day life. Like if I lived in Vietnam and I needed to go grocery shopping or go to a restaurant, go to a cafe, I could get by in all of those situations. So that's really nice. I'm really happy with that. But I feel like at this point, after a year, I feel like if you do something for a year, you should be really good at it. And so I'm like, man, I could be so much better if I just like did things right, which is why I wanted to make this video, because if somebody had told me these things first, I would have maybe been a lot further than I am now. But that's okay, because that's how you learn. And so now, I'm upping my time with my tutor. I'm really kicking this into high gear. Pretty much every video I watch on YouTube right now is in Vietnamese, and I can understand like 50% of it, maybe 75% of it if it's an easier video. There's also, this other video I found recently. Sorry, this might be a random tangent, but let me find this channel real quick, because this lady speaks Vietnamese. Here it is. It's NGOC space UYEN, and then it's dash Yadin Viet Nhiet. I always pronounce that weird. But anyways, it's a Vietnamese woman who lives in Japan. Her husband's Japanese, and she just makes videos about their life. I think recently they went back to Vietnam to visit her family for that. And the way she speaks is like very slow and like really easy to understand. And it's Southern as well. So it's nice. Stuff like that is really, really nice, because you need to practice listening, like I said earlier, to pick up on those filler words and to just get accustomed to how the words sound, because it's hard to pick up on like, okay, which accent was that? Which word did she say? Did she say it with the up accent, the down accent, like all that stuff? So you have to listen as much as possible. So like my whole YouTube, I'm looking at it right now, is just all Vietnamese stuff. My YouTube channel, or my YouTube recommendations, I think it thinks I'm Vietnamese, so it started to try to teach me English now. So I'm really happy that that's the case. So get to that, do that, and you'll be listening a lot more. So those are the recommendations I have. If you found any of these helpful, go ahead and give this video a thumbs up. If you want to follow this journey of learning Vietnamese, and I do plan on making more videos in Vietnamese as well, because I know that that's helpful to listen to and it's helpful for me to speak it, then go ahead and give this channel a follow. And if I missed any suggestions that you think would be helpful, or maybe even some resources that you think are really good, then please drop those in the comments, because other people are going to find that really, really useful for their learning journey. Okay, and until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later. All right, bye.